What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you today on YouTube. And today I've got, once again, number 19 in my top 20 favorite all-time horror movies list. I started this yesterday. I'm going to list my top 20 horror films, counting backwards from 20 to 1, starting yesterday, one per day, and finish with number 1 on Halloween. If you didn't see my number 20 pick, go back and watch it on my channel. The video is up right now. I put a lot of time into that one and this whole list entirely. It's very hard to pick 20 horror films. And again, not best movies or best in a certain category. These are just my 20 particular favorite horror movies of all time. So number 19, there's already a little controversy because I had done the list yesterday. I picked out my list and I had this one listed at number 19, but I was debating like 3 or 4 other movies that were outside the top 20 because it's so hard to narrow it down to 20. And I put one on, and I decided to watch the other one that was off the list yesterday for the second time. And after rewatching it, I changed the list at the last minute. But just before I got on air here, I just changed my list. I was going to put the uninvited, the more recent, like 2008 or 9 version on here. I like the newer uninvited. Really good twist. If you haven't seen that one, it's honorable mention. It's worth checking out. 2 sisters. One comes back from an insane asylum. And chaos ensues with the father. The mother had died in a burning house fire, and the father is now getting remarried, and the sisters don't like the mother. And there's a lot of cool twists, and it really got me. So if you haven't seen The Uninvited, go check that out. But I had to sub that off the list to make room for this new modern-day classic. This number 19 is The Babadook. Now, I know most horror fans, you guys know what it is. You all love it. I've heard some mixed reviews, but mostly positive. I think it's like 98% on Rotten Tomatoes for good reason. There are 2 modern horror films in the last 10 years that I think stand out above the rest. My 2 favorite horror films made in the last 10 or 15 years are Trick or Treat and The Babadook, and for good reason. So this is one of my newest entries on the list. It's 2014. It came out a few years ago. And to me, I've always called it the modern day Shining. There will be spoilers in this movie, so if you have not seen it and you want to see it, pause this and go watch the movie and check this out afterwards. So there are spoilers, excuse me. But The Babadook, to me, it's a modern day Shining. It is a psychological thrill ride. It's about an hour and 26 minutes, and it feels like it takes you through the ringer. There are so many good things about this movie. It is the story of a mother and her son. You imagine somewhere in Britain, because there's like a British English kind of a dialect to it. But there's a mother and a son who are living together, who have a really connected, close bond, but they're really struggling overcoming the death of the father of the family, the wife's husband and the son's father. Died in a car crash on the way to have the child. So the mother and son are dealing with not having the man of the house around anymore. It's been 7 years, but the wife is repressing memories. She's holding in her thoughts. She's not resting. She's sexually repressed. She's physically repressed, and the son is very weird. He's a very peculiar child who has a fascination with monsters. And so you see the relationship between the two kind of delving and dividing as time goes on. The child's considered weird, does a lot of weird things. And she's putting the child to bed at night, and he comes across this book called Mr. Babadook. And they read the book, and of course the child freaks out because he has a monster fetish already, and he's terrified. And they give you these cool illustrations in this book. You have this Babadook monster popping up out of the pages, and there's a rhyme talking about once you let it in, you can't unsee it. And the more you talk about it, the more you let it in. And there's a really cool storybook rhyme. It's like a kid's book, but like a murder twist, and it's really graphic for children. And there's a cool rhyme and cool pictures that go along with it popping out of the book. And it terrifies the child, and he starts to become obsessed with it. And he makes these weapons to try and kill it, and he thinks it's coming in the house, and he's the foreboding gloom and doom character, and he does a really good job. This kid, Noah, as his first name, really creeps me out. He is the quintessential scary child actor. He rivals the girls in The Shining and does a wonderful job. Man, he plays that creepy, kind of off-kilter character to a hilt. Scenic-wise, they use a lot of trees and old-style neighborhood shots, and there's a lot of quick cuts. They don't use a lot of music. they let the silence kind of speak for itself and build the terror. This thing, when I first watched it, I spent the entire hour and 26 minutes just like kind of like this, cringing in my blanket, waiting for something to happen, because the kid would kind of go off and be manic and have mood swings, and the mom would have mood swings, and it's a psychological deterioration. It really gets inside your head because you feel like you've taken this ride with them. It's kind of a slow build. They have the British dialects, which can throw some fans off. And they also, like I said, it's kind of a dry movie in a lot of ways. But I think it keeps your attention the entire time. I love this. It's just shows the slow process of mental breakdown. And the mother gets more and more frustrated with the son being obsessed with the monsters. And she's not resting. They haven't slept. Neither one of them has slept in like days and days. And their looks are fading. And the son's getting more cranky. And the mother is missing the husband more and more. And it's this psychological, social character study that really has just two main characters that carry it throughout. And both do an excellent job. Like this main character, the mom, rivals Shelley Duvall. And just seeing her watch the breakdown go through. And again, the son is the definition for me of a good creepy child actor who plays his character well. They get estranged from their families. Their next door neighbor, an old lady with Parkinson's, she sort of sees the deterioration creep in, and it's just this slow building. But the entire time there's good stuff. The visuals in this, again, the scenery is really cool and dark. The silence amplifies the terror times 10, and a lot of the things they use, like shots in the background. You see visions of her seeing her murdered bloody child. They use the dog to protect the child. This little tiny dog lays over the child as the Babadook starts to creep in. Of course, she tries to burn the book and get rid of the book, and it comes back stronger every time and says, the more you try and deny us, the more you try and hide the Babadook, the more it gets inside you. And of course, the Babadook possesses the mother at one point. And she starts having jaw affectations where her jaw is moving. She starts doing the shaky cam stuff where she can't sleep. And again, the terror just builds and builds. And she gets possessed by the Babadook and by the spirits in the house, much like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. And it's this, like I said, it's a little considered dry because it's quiet and it's kind of slow building, but it's psychologically the same kind of way that Jack Nicholson gets taken over by the Overlook Hotel. The mom gets possessed by this Babadook and winds up choking, strangling the dog, and murdering the dog in a gruesome scene. And seeing a murder scene on TV with her murdering her child, which is just in her mind. It's more psychological breakdown. Seeing her maniacal face. Having a scene where she peels back the oven and the wallpaper, and there's a big hole in the wall, and there's a bunch of bugs squirting out. And one time she's like sleepwalking, and she has a knife in her hand, and her son catches her before she's about to stab her son. Just all this mental breakdown. It's a really, really good movie. And essentially it ends with the husband, there's visions of the husband coming back as the mom tries to kill the son because she's possessed. And the son's love, he touches her cheek and he won't give up on her and he's going to protect her. He vows to stay by his mother's side. And the love essentially gets the mother unpossessed by the spirit. The love was too much for the spirit, the Babadook, to handle. And then in the end, the mother stands up and says that it's her house and she's going to take it back. And she uses that courage to defeat the Babadook and hold him off. Much like in Freddy Krueger, you take the power away when you're not scared anymore. When you start to admit it and take back your property, that's when the spirit starts to go away. So much like Nightmare on Elm Street, it ends with the mother taking back. But then the child goes for his birthday party. The mother starts to move on at the end from the husband, and they start getting their lives back. But the spirit is in the basement. They collect worms every day. And the mom takes it down to the basement and feeds the Babadook. So the Babadook is almost their pet in a sense, because one of the lines in the book is you can't get rid of the Babadook. So they've gotten rid of it in terms of haunting them, but he's quieter now. He's in the basement. He's going to feed on bugs. He's going to be their localized resident spirit. I really wish there was a sequel to this because, again, the way they build the terror and the utter silence and the slow building mechanism of this movie just ratchets up tension like no other. Again, besides Trick or Treat, it's probably the best horror film, in my opinion, in the last 10 to 12 years. So what did you guys think? I give this movie like 8.5, 9 range. It's really, really good. If you guys have not seen it, please go check it out. If you like psychological thrillers, if you like stuff like The Shining, if you like paranormal mixed with like a Beast-style movie, mixed with, psychological mental breakdown, stuff like that, creepy children, dark scenery. If you like those things, the Babadook is a can't miss. So if you've seen it, what do you think? If you have not seen it, do you want to see it? What'd you think of this review? And again, what are your lists? This is my number 19 best horror movie of all time for myself, my favorite. Where are your lists? Post them down below. Talk about this movie and talk about your other favorites. And I will see you guys with number 18 tomorrow. So until next time, lock your doors, stay scared, dim the lights, and enjoy the movies. Happy Halloween, guys.